That's not right. Here we go. Hey, everybody, this is Dan and Chris back for season 4 of A Father's Love Healing Through Heartache. Um, we are excited because we're trying something. We're hoping that we're broadcasting live on Facebook Live for the first time. We've been hoping to do this all 3 seasons, and I think I just didn't click the right button once to figure it out. But if everything's going right, we're live on Facebook right now. So welcome to everybody who may be tuning in live. If you are watching live, please send us notes, send us comments through Facebook Messenger or a text or whatever, and if we get them, we'll try to answer any questions you have as we talk through this, and hopefully it all works okay. So
Yeah.
let me reintroduce for all our new listeners. Welcome back, Chris. Why don't you say what you got to say, Chris, and just introduce yourself to everybody who may be listening for the first time.
Yeah, hey Dan, it is awesome to be back. So, Dan and I we met when we both lost our sons, and we kind of use this as our therapy to kind of, get through the grief and help us deal with life as things come at us now after losing our sons. So, my name is Chris. I lost my son Mason a little over 3 years ago now to a condition called ADEM. It's an autoimmune disease which ended up attacking his brain. This all happened during COVID, so it was very, very difficult time already. I just retired from the military. I just got out of the Air Force after 22 years, and yeah, I'm back as a civilian. Big Buffalo Bills fan, big Buffalo fan. We moved back to Buffalo after the military, and it's great to be back home now, and just loving life as we start this new journey as a civilian. So that's a quick little gist of me there, Dan. How about yourself?
Well, my name's Dan. I lost my son Jameson. We're at 4.5 years now, and yeah, Chris said it. This has been therapy for me. I did a professional session with somebody, and she was awesome, but she didn't wasn't able to provide anything that I can't get talking with Chris and other dads and other people who have actually lost children. It's just something different when you're talking with people who have gone through something as close as anybody possibly can. So I'm super pumped to be back. I'm also from Western New York, living in North Carolina right now, but also a Bills fan. So just a weird coincidence. Chris and I hooked up, and both being originally from the Buffalo area. Um, Hopefully, in a few months, we'll be talking about a Super Bowl episode, but we're Bills fans, so we won't put the cart ahead of the horse on that one.
Go Bills.
So, so yeah, Chris and I started this. This is season 4. Again, it's therapy for us. We hope it's therapy for anybody else that's watching and listening. We're real and raw with what we say. We don't hold anything back. We're open books, and we encourage anybody that's listening, go back through our old episodes, and we feel pretty confident that if you've suffered loss of any kind, but especially loss of a child, that you'll find some episodes that hit close to you and make you feel like you're normal. You're going through the same things that we are, and that's one of our goals here.
And I think it's important too for those that are listening. If you haven't experienced the loss of a child, but you want to support others that have maybe that have lost a child, we have a bunch of episodes also in the past that talk about how you can be supportive early in the process and throughout the years as time goes on. Because to be honest, and Dan can attest, this is a wound that never heals. It'll never heal, and support forever really is vital to getting back to a point of living a happy life, whatever that happy can be after such a terrible loss. So, this episode and all the other episodes, they're not just for those that have lost, but also those that want to help those that lost.
Exactly. Exactly. So, we're gonna let Chris start. Chris's summer has been just a tad bit more exciting than my summer was. Um, I'm a school teacher, so I had regular summer break. Chris has not. So we're gonna let Chris take the floor and just share what's going on, what's been going on in his life for the last, I don't even know how many months, but a lot, and just talk about what you've been through personally, what your family's been through, and how does that all tie in with your process of grieving and taking another step.
Yeah, well, thanks, Dan. Yeah, it has been a chaotic summer to say the least. I thought I was prepared. Like I said, I did 22 years in the military and I just retired. And I thought I was ready for the chaos that was coming. I don't think I could have ever imagined it. How crazy it was getting out of the military and becoming a civilian. In May, I started an internship with the company. The military is a cool program where your last 3 to 6 months you can be an intern to just kind of start the transition into being a civilian. That went really well. They offered me a job. I ended up taking a job with another company, and the job has been going great. I enjoy it. I'm learning a lot, and I can't complain one bit in terms of what the company does and being able to help them with my skills and abilities. So the job has probably been the easiest part of the whole process, which is crazy to think about because I basically started a whole new career at the age of 40. So surprisingly, though, that part was super easy. Um, it's been a bit chaotic, though. I'm sure everybody knows that you hear about the housing market and how difficult that was. And we hit that head on coming into Buffalo. It took us a solid 2 months to find a house and then another 2 months to just close on the house. Now, super happy. We got our house. We're in it now. I'm literally 3 minutes from the Bills Stadium and 2 minutes from the new stadium being built. So, being a big Bills fan, it's awesome to be right in the center of it all and, see the tailgating, see all the fun that happens. And so that's been great. We got moved into the house. There's still a million boxes everywhere. We're slowly getting through to them and taking care of them. But that was a bit, it's very chaotic when you make a move. This was our eighth or ninth move. Every move comes with its challenges. This one was, the company that packed us up didn't label the boxes correctly. And they, in the military, they put these little numbers on every single box so you can keep track of them. Well, because they numbered wrong, we were missing boxes. It was very chaotic. For a moment, we actually thought we were missing some of Mason's boxes because we have about 6 totes of his that are all his stuff, labeled very clearly that they're Mason stuff. And luckily, we found them. We have all of them, but that was a bit stressful waiting for that. Um, the kids have been adjusting very well to the new environment and their new schools. I have 2 high schoolers, and then my little guys in elementary school. They're all adjusting as well as they can with their, my older boys. This is probably their 5th school now, so 5th or 6th school, somewhere around there. So they're doing pretty good considering all the stress is put on them. My wife, Amanda, she's doing great. She's got a job now with the vet clinic. I will say that, whenever we go through a move, it's always going to put some strain on a marriage, just like any normal couple. And this move definitely put a strain on our marriage. But everything is good to go now. I think it's just the stress of the unknown, Didn't know when I was going to get my job started. Didn't know when we were going to move in the house. Didn't know when we were going to get our stuff. It's very uncomfortable. So, and, most people are used to being uncomfortable for a couple days or even weeks. Well, when you do it for 3 or 4 months, it starts to wear you down mentally. So, everything is good to go now, though. We're finally in a groove as a family. Got some routines going, except for the boxes and making some upgrades to the house. We're starting to really click here in Western New York, and we're happy to be up here. So Yeah, it's been chaotic is an understatement, but we're glad we're finally at a point now where Dan and I can start doing these again, and hopefully helping some people out. How about you, Dan?
Well, yeah, thanks for sharing. I want to keep focusing on you for a bit, if that's okay. So,
Sure.
so talk, tell us more. When you finally figured out for sure that you were retiring from the Air Force and you were moving back home to Buffalo, talk more about your emotions in regards to Mason there, because um, those of us that know that that's where Mason's buried. Um, you started in Alaska, you went through Idaho, through Delaware, and you're finally back to Buffalo. That, as long as I've known you, that's been your dream. And I have no idea what it's like being away from my son that across the country. Just talk
Yeah.
about that whole emotional
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, I mean, so when Mason was still alive, the actual plan wasn't to move back to Western New York, to be honest. The actual plan was to move to Alaska when we were done. We really loved Alaska. We had always dreamed of moving back up there. And when Mason passed, we were stationed in Idaho at the time. We weren't going to leave him in Idaho. We couldn't leave him there. We were only there for a couple months when he passed. We were probably only there like maybe 8 months, and we had no ties to Idaho. We were not coming back to Idaho, so we brought him home here to Buffalo, and he's buried next to his aunt, Amanda's sister, who passed many years ago in a car accident or a bike accident. And it was really emotional the first time we had to leave Mason right after he passed, and we had to go back to Idaho. And being able to come back once Mason was here, and as the years went on, we were like, we couldn't go to Alaska. We couldn't not be able to visit Mason. We were coming home pretty often. Right after Mason passed, we moved to Delaware, so we were able to come home pretty often, driving up from Delaware to Buffalo. And we, of course, visited Mason every single time. So being back here now, it's like such a weight off my shoulder in terms of Mason, because, as a dad, like, your job is to protect your kids. I always felt like maybe I let Mason down at some point because of just how everything worked out. At the end of the day, I know I did everything I could have done, but, there's always some regret in the back of your mind that maybe you didn't do everything. So being able to be here, take care of his site, make sure it's protected, make sure it's clean. That feels really good, like a weight lifted off of me. And it just feels good to know I can go whenever I want. When I first got here, I was going at least once a week. It's been a bit chaotic now, so I haven't been able to go once a week, but at least once every 2 weeks, I go personally myself. And then we go as a family at least once a month. So it's been, a bit hard as well, but also feels good. Every time you go, it tears the wound a little bit more. But it's also therapeutic because, that's where he is, and that's how we can visit him. So
Yeah, I didn't even think about the pain of re-tearing the wound every time too. Yeah, I can totally see that happening.
yeah.
So, how are the boys doing? And maybe Amanda with being closer to Mason.
I think the boys we've talked in the past are pretty resilient, and Amanda kind of told me too, because she lost her sister, that she's like, the boys, Mason will always kind of be on their mind, but it's never going to hit them as hard as it hit us. And that's true. I think the boys are, I don't want to say fully recovered. They know, especially my little guy, Carson, he brings up Mason pretty often, because when he's bored, he's like, I wish Mason was here so I could play with him, because that's what they used to do. So, but overall, the boys, they're not crying, they're not sad, they're not dwelling on it. They're moving on like they should. I don't expect them to have the sadness that we have. So, um, they're doing pretty well. With Amanda, I think it's hit or miss. Sometimes I think, I think I've said this before. I always feel worse Dads, we of course grieve, but moms have special places in their hearts for their children. They carried them for those 9 months. So, I always feel bad for my wife because I know the heaviness she feels not having Mason here. And, she's still working through her grief.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I know I could say Reese too, and it I guess it bothers me because kids are so resilient. He doesn't talk about Jameson's death too often. He'll mention it once in a while. But yeah, those times that he's bored are just those are the ones that still hurt probably the most for me. Of just because we can't do it as adults. We can't give him as much attention and playtime and all that as he wants. But yeah, they'd have each other if they were still here.
Yeah, I mean, and that's always the hard part, but and what can you do? There's nothing we can do now, unfortunately.
Right. So, you mentioned something. We haven't talked about this yet, so it's news to me. Um, Talk more about Mason's boxes of just what you went through with that, because I know we've talked about it before, the pain of having to pack everything up, and when's the right time. And I know for those that are newer listeners, Chris and Amanda were kind of forced into going through Mason stuff pretty quickly with their move to Delaware. Jameson's stuff, Erica and I were able to sit here a lot longer and do it when we were more comfortable with it. But talk about that whole thing of when you thought those boxes were gone.
Yeah, so we probably have 6 pretty decent sized totes of Mason stuff. We pretty much refuse to get rid of any of Mason stuff. We're not at that point yet where we feel ready. So so like Dan said, when Mason passed and we were going to move to Delaware, Amanda and I had to go through his stuff and pack it all up pretty early, probably, I would say within 2 months of his passing, we were packing all his stuff up. So those that have lost a child, you know how difficult that can be if you've gone through it, or if you haven't gone through it yet because you're dreading it, you know how hard it is. So very difficult process. So obviously those totes are with us all the time. Super strong totes. I have them secured. I have them labeled properly. And when you go through a move in the military, it's kind of weird. When they pack the truck up, they don't they don't pack it the way you think, like you would pack a U-Haul or something. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle in the sense like they'll put anything anywhere to fit as much stuff in the truck as possible. So all 6 of Mason's totes got separated at one point. Now our stuff went into storage for about a month and a half to 2 months until we closed on our house here in New York. And when it goes into storage, they put all of our stuff into these giant crates. And then they bring the crates to our house to unpack us. That's how the military does it. And basically, I think we had like maybe 6 or 7 crates. And there was it wasn't until, of course, like the last 2 crates, we finally started to find his totes. And very nerve-wracking because I wanted them as quickly as possible and took a while, in fact, they had mislabeled and put an extra tote down for Mason. So I had to really think back. I was like, they put that we had 7 totes but we have 6. Then I had to really second guess. I was like, did we have 7? Did we have 6? Did they lose one? I had to really dig deep into my memory of stacking his totes. And once I was able to figure out, no, we actually only ever had 6. They mislabeled again another item as Mason's tote. It all kind of came together, and probably within the last 2 hours before the movers were done, we finally had them all secured. So it was an emotional little roller coaster that day trying to find them all, but luckily, crisis averted. We have all of his important things, and we can store them properly now.
Awesome, good. Well, I know I'm thrilled that you're in your new house, and your family is getting settled and just past most of that stress that I know I felt
Yeah,
a lot of it just being your friend. I felt a lot of the
yeah,
stress for you all, and I can't imagine you guys actually living through everything you've gone through with your. Um, Chris has retired from the Air Force like 18 times in the last year. I don't understand that world, but I'm glad you're finally in Buffalo and finally in your new job and all that. So
it does feel good to be, out of the military, and I think that's another kind of mental health aspect that a lot of, if you're a veteran listening, you probably understand. Like, the transition out of the military is very difficult because when you're part of such a big team, leaving that team is pretty difficult if you loved it like I did. I absolutely loved being in the military and loved being in the Air Force. So, um, you know, it's a process, oddly enough, leaving the military, or at least it was for me. So,
yeah.
how about you, Dan? It's your turn.
All right. Well, my summer's been pretty uneventful. Just the life of a teacher working hard over summer. We had a really good mix of fun as a family projects, a little bit of traveling, a good mix of everything. I feel we last summer we undertook the major house reno with new floors, which turned into painting everything on the walls, which turned into removing the popcorn ceiling and painting ceilings and new lights all over and swapping everything electrical with the white instead of the beige. So we were able to finish up the majority of that this summer. So the house, it feels good because we still have that display for Jameson to honor him, but we've got our new house too with the way we want it, the colors that we wanted, and all that stuff. So it kind of gives a little bit of a fresh start to help us take that next step forward. Um, I don't remember exactly when it was, but we turned in our third bedroom into our game room, so that's all set up now, and it's I don't know, did I share this on the show? Um, there was in
No, I don't think so.
our local ABC store had a Jameson's Irish whiskey display, and the first time I saw it, in there for purely educational purposes, but I was in there and I saw this display, and it was just like three half barrels stacked on top of each other, and it had Jameson branding all over it, and I obviously just was drawn toward it, and so I reached out to the manager of that store, and it's like, hey man, I want that. Whenever you're done using it for a display, I want it. And he was like, I would if I could, but we've had issues with across the state. We've had issues with employees taking displays home, and we just can't have it. So they're really cracking down on that. But I'll ask. And so every month or two, I would email him, hey, I saw it still there. Any update? And he never had anything. But then somewhere toward the end of last school year, I was in a meeting with a couple other people and I got a phone call. And so I checked the voice message and it was him. And this was, I don't know, almost a year after I first talked to him. And he said, Dan, I got the display if you want it. And I was literally around the corner a mile away from his shop. So, meeting ended and I went down and I talked to him and I'm like, thank you so much. So the rep said you could give it to me, right? He's like, no, but I'm ready to ask for forgiveness. You need it. So obviously that meant a lot. But we brought it home. So we have that set up in the game room with all of Jameson's stuffed animals and some of the bigger memory things in there. We have the back wall with all his baseball stuff framed up, his all-star uniform, all his bats and gloves. So it's just that's my sanctuary now, where I can go in there and just chill out, play video games, watch TV, recline. I have my recliner in there and just I feel surrounded by him, so that's nice. The biggest thing I think for my summer, in terms of my grief, is three books I've read about God. And if you've listened to the show before, I've been wrestling with my faith. Been wrestling with God a lot. Been wrestling with Christians a lot over the 4.5 years. But I finally, thanks to our friend Dennis, who's been on this show multiple times, and we'll have to come back to him because we both have something cool to share about him, I think. Um, but thanks to him, he recommended these books to me, and I'm just finishing up the third one, and these are the books that I think have finally helped me turn a corner in my faith. And I'm not on the right track yet, but I'm heading that way. Just with their message that it's okay to be upset with God, it's okay to be questioning God, hearing that other people who have lost children, again, seeing their process of wrestling with God and how they restore themselves. So um, I'm feeling better about my faith, which is obviously a big deal if you're a faithful person. So that's my big thing that happened this summer.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. And yeah, so a question in regards to when you were remodeling the house. Now, I know you guys had just moved into that house, right, before Jameson had passed, right? Did that stir any memories, kind of like, or make it more difficult because you thought maybe you were taking something away that Jameson had touched or was part of, or anything like that? Or any advice for people that might want to be doing something like that, but they're not sure if they can?
It didn't, the process itself, like I personally didn't have anything like Jameson touched this or Jameson went in this room. We can't do it. I think we went through all that with while his stuff was still in the room. And then once we cleared it out, we're able to start going through that. For me, I took care of most of those thoughts. It was, for me, thankfully, it was the healing part of being able to again, I feel like I've shared it, but maybe it was just you and me talking. The fact that we've been able to give Reese his own room now, and we've totally recarpeted, repainted, redecorated everything. He got to pick the paint color, his obnoxiously bright orange paint that he wanted, and just hang up stuff that he wanted. We're very thankful for that, so that he's not living in the room that he and Jameson shared, and any memories or things that may just keep bringing him down. That's a good feeling. Setting up the game room was a big plus. So just it was important steps to help us move forward a little bit in our grief, which again is a never-ending process. I think for me, the two biggest like um, triggers were actually happened much earlier in the renovation, where just when we were moving all the furniture to make for them to do the flooring, pulling off the couch cushions, I found residue of the night Jameson was sick. And when we pulled his bed away to paint it, we found some residue of when he was sick. So that hurt because obviously those are the really painful memories that led up. But at the same time, thank God they're cleaned up now, and we don't have to think about or see those very much anymore. So for me, it was much more healing than painful. I don't know about Erica much other than the fact that as painful as it is to be in this house, we can never move from this house because this is where, even for it was only 7 months, but this is where we lived, and this is where the house that literally Jameson died in the house. So um, we're we're here, like it or not. We can't leave that.
No, I mean, I think that's a really good point because the house that we were in that Mason passed from, um, we'll never see that house again, and it's a weird feeling because we had really good memories in that house and obviously our worst memory in that house. So, you bring up a good point. Like, it was actually hard to move from that house, um, because of that, because it was like all of our last memories with Mason are in that house, and I don't get to keep those last memories the same. I have the memories, but it's different because I don't get to see his room, or the door he would open up and just goof around when he popped his head in the door, stuff like that. I won't get to see that anymore. It's all just a memory. So it's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Yep.
That you have, I would say. Yep. So in terms of the books, I know you read 3, or you're finishing up your 3rd. What's maybe your favorite piece of advice from all those books to help you turn that corner that you think? And if I put you on the spot with that, that's fine too. I don't memorize quotes from books or anything like that.
I know, so and that's where I'll try to dig through my phone some and see if I can find any too. But I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me is, and it's something that anybody that's read the Bible has read it a lot. You've heard it preached a lot. And I don't know if I just never listened to it or processed it, or just the fact that this is the season we're in life, it resonates that much more. But the fact that on the cross, Jesus questioned God. I've had discussions with people. I had a discussion with one of my friends who's a pastor of a church, and he, like early on in the grief process, and he told me that literally just a couple weeks before that, he had a couple left his church because from the stage, he said he was mad at God. And they were all questioning, how dare you as a pastor say you are mad at God? And I won't share his personal life, but he's got some things going on with his kids' health that give him every right to question God. And so that hit me hard. That, I mean, gosh, the big book of Job's story, David questioned God. And then in this book, the one that really resonated, that was the fact that on the cross, Jesus questioned God. Why have you forsaken me? And if you want to feel normal going through what you're going through, and you're a Christian trying to be obedient and grow in your faith and all that, to hear that Jesus questioned God, I mean, there's no more powerful message than that. So yeah. I think that was the one that's the one that hooked me on that book, because that was early on. And then it just went on and highlighted story after story of people who were yelling at God, crying out to God, questioning God and his goodness and his faithfulness and all that. And when you're grieving, I think this is safe to say that one of the biggest things that grieving people want is to know that what they're going through is normal. And we've talked about it so many times on this show, that just thoughts that pop into your head and reactions to people and just everything's like, is this normal? And I think we both can say absolutely yes, it is normal. And to hear that my questioning of God is normal according to the Bible was a really big deal for my faith walk.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad you read those books. I'm glad Dennis recommended them to you, and I'm gonna have to. I don't want to say I'm lucky in the sense of, for some reason, losing Mason made my faith grow, whereas other people seem to struggle. It goes either way. Everyone's different, and there's no right, wrong, or rhythm to it. It's different for everyone. So Yeah, no, I'm glad you're finding that for yourself. So,
Yeah. And
um,
I want to say crystal clearly to people listening, because we see it on the grief boards and probably talk to people too. Um, and we've discussed it before. There's a lot of people who, when you lose a loved one, especially a child, I think, that go to the thought that even if there is a God, I don't want to believe in a God that would take a child. What kind of God would take a child? How awful does God need to be to take a child? And to all of those people listening, um, by making those statements, you're still indicating that you believe in God. And that's the first step. Don't give up your faith. It's okay to struggle and wrestle with it. God knows I have and still am. Um, but don't give up, because if you're a believer, God doesn't promise us an easy life. He doesn't promise a happy life. He does promise us that we will have trials and tribulations and that we need to persevere through it. Don't give up. Reach out to people. Find those people you can talk to walk with you, to carry you, whatever it is. And to those Chris mentioned at the beginning of the show, even if you haven't lost a loved one, lost a child, we hope that you'll get something out of this show of how you can walk that journey with people. And one of the ways to do that is to not be a Christian that's throwing out all kinds of Christian cliches, but to literally carry the person through their grief, be there for their needs, be there to remember their loved one, to talk about their loved one, to send notes, just checking in on us, to carry Galatians 6:2, a verse that was shared with me by somebody who's been super supportive of us. Carry one another's burdens. If you're a person who is everything's going well in life and you have the strength to do it, be that person to carry those who are not strong enough to walk on their own. Um, but don't give up.
oh yeah, awesome advice. Definitely don't give up, and that's why we're here. We want to help others as well that are going through their trials and tribulations, and we want to help carry others like others have helped carry us. So um, we're here to help. Reach out to us or others that have gone through grief that can maybe help you as well. So on another note, Dan, we didn't tell everyone about what you and I did this summer.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, on that note of reaching out to others and finding people that can walk with you. Um, I've tried for 4.5 years, well, 3.5 years to find Chris, but he just keeps moving to get away from me. Um, but Chris and I were both fortunate enough to meet Dennis. You had lunch with him in Delaware or Philly, right?
Uh, it was in Delaware, close. Yeah, I don't remember where exactly now, but yeah, I definitely met him while we were in Delaware.
And then Dennis came up. Actually, he lives in North Carolina, and he and Debbie made the trip out there. And again, for those of you who are new listeners, Dennis and Debbie lost their son Ryan 38, 39 years ago. And they are mentors to us and a lot of other parents who have lost children. Debbie just published a book about grief's deception and the lies that grief tells. But it's one of those things that you got to connect to people that you can walk through this journey with. And men, it's hard to open up and it's hard to be raw and share your emotions, but you have to find people that you can share with. So it's really cool meeting Dennis and Debbie. But I was able to make the trip home to see my family in Western New York. And so that gave Chris and I the opportunity, because Buffalo's only an hour and a half away from my hometown. So Chris and I were able to meet, our families were able to meet. And that was just an amazing experience, at least for me. You can run, but you can't hide.
Yeah. I no, it was awesome. Like Dan said, we've been trying for years to figure it out, and it's awesome to finally meet him in person, and I'm really looking forward. The goal next year is to finally go to his grief retreat. Couldn't get enough time off this year because I just started a new job. But next year is the goal. Plan it, be ready to go, and get to go spend some more time with your family. And I'm really looking forward to that also.
Absolutely.
How's that planning going with that, Dan?
The grief retreat, it's looking good. For anybody listening, this was Erica's baby growing. As soon as Jameson passed and we started getting Jameson's joy off the ground, the one thing that hit her right away was that she wanted to do a grief retreat for families. And again, just get connected with people who are going through a similar thing as anybody possibly can. And she tried hard, did a lot of planning, and it just didn't work out. And then finally, she had it all planned, and COVID hit and shut it down. But we were able to do our first one last year, and we had a couple families join us in the Western North Carolina mountains, and it was an absolutely amazing event. It covered the entire spectrum of emotions. But again, we were able to connect to other people that we could just look at and talk to and say, hey, we're normal. What we're going through is normal. And this year, we've got enough spots for 8 families to join us with the place that we stay. We've got exclusive rental of a property on top of a mountain. It's a beautiful mountain lodge, just peaceful, away from everything. And we've got 5 of the 8 spots filled up this year so far, plus our family is extra. So we've got 6 families that'll be there so far. Wide range of stories. And as awful as you think as awful as I think my story is, and as awful as Chris thinks his story is, you talk to enough people and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe your story. So we've got some stories that are just heartbreaking, and there's going to be some tears shed. But we still have 3 spots opened up for registration. If your family has lost a child from birth through age 20, we welcome you to our retreat. It's November 9th through 12th. It's a cost of $150, covers everything, food, lodging, everything. Our foundation picks up the majority of the cost. We do not want money to be the barrier, but it's just going to be another incredible time because we're able to get together with people going on the same journey of life. This year, there's going to be a few different tears shed. The first registration we had is from a family at the eastern side of North Carolina, and their son that they lost is named Jameson. So just so many different stories that are already coming to the grief retreat, and many more to come. But welcome to answer. Happily, we'll answer any questions anybody has. Just shoot me an email at info@jamesonsjoy.org. But if you're ready to talk, and even if you're not ready to talk, you need to talk. So give it some thought, and if you've got time off that you can take for November 9th through 12th to come to Western North Carolina and spend a couple days, we would be honored to have you. We do focus in on families, birth through 20, kids 0 through 20, because it's not that we're dismissing anybody else's pain, but we want to be hyper focused with our activities and our discussions so that our attendees can get the most possible out of the retreat. And to do that, we do have to put some restrictions on it. We want to focus on children who are younger. It's a different discussion when you've lost an adult child. And again, not dismissing the pain, but it's just a different dynamic, a different discussion. We want full families there because we're going to have discussions about marriage. We're going to have discussions about dads and moms. We're going to have full family discussions. So that's what our focus is. I'll happily try to connect you with another organization that has had some retreats that are wide open to anybody. But we do have those focuses for this particular retreat.
Well, that's awesome. I'm super happy to hear that so many families have signed up. And, for those that are listening, running out of time because those are going to fill up. I guarantee they're going to be full before, the end of the month. So I'm really happy to hear that, Dan.
Yep.
So, been a crazy summer, man.
Yep. So yeah, it's exciting to be back. Again, for anybody that's new, we encourage you to go back through and just listen to whatever episodes you want. Chris and I will do a lot of review because grief is always changing. But one new thing that I got this idea from another grief podcast that I've got one friend already, and hopefully we can both get more. If you're a person that's walked closely with the Lepardi family or my family, and you'd be willing to come on our show, we would love to have you again to help people who you haven't lost a child, but you've been through it very closely because you've been close to our families. We would love to have you on to share just what's your thought and where's your heart and why you've chosen to do what so many people are scared to do or feel like they don't know how to do it. And then Chris, you want to tell the other guests that we're always looking for?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you've lost a child before and you want to come on and tell your story, we love that opportunity for you. We want you to come on and feel comfortable sharing, and it could be very difficult. It could be the very first time you've ever really talked about it in public, but there is a sense of relief you get when you finally tell the story completely. Dan and I have said it before, when we first were telling our stories, very difficult. I'm pretty sure I cried every single time. But as I kept telling the story more often, it's not as difficult. I mean, it feels, the hurt is still there, but I'm able to talk about the story a lot easier now and make sure people understand some of the importance of things that I want to get across. So, if you feel comfortable and you want to come on, shoot myself or Dan a message on any social media or our email addresses, and we'll gladly get you scheduled to come on. We have a couple guests that are already lined up to come on, so we're looking forward to having them on real soon as well.
Yep. And as we said at the beginning, I think we're actually being successful Facebook living. I've got it pulled up on my phone. It looks like it's working. My wife is watching. Hi, honey. She made chicken enchiladas for dinner. But we're going to, as long as the technology allows us, we're going to broadcast live. We would love for feedback and questions during the episode. That would make it so much better. I'd like to say that life will allow us to broadcast every Tuesday at 5. We know better than that, so we'll try to be as consistent as possible, but it's not going to happen. But we will stick to the same schedule. That Thursday nights at 6, we will be posting it on our Facebook page. It won't be the live; it'll be a recorded version of the show, but it will go up Thursdays. Chris and I have to work out all the details. We'll probably record every other week again, just to give us time to let life happen. But just keep checking the Jameson's Joy page, the Miles for Mason page, and they'll be there. If you need anything, if you need those people to connect to, as Chris said, send us a note. We're both on Facebook. We love connecting to other people, husbands or wives, moms or dads. Just send us a friend request on Facebook. Send us a message. Email me at info@jamesonsjoy.org. Email Chris
at milesformasonmemorial.com.
He actually thought I might remember that through the off season. There's no way. But we love talking to people. Again, this has been so therapeutic to us. And hey, my wife gave me a shout out in the comments. That's pretty cool. But we love just talking to people because it does help. And I don't know. What else, Chris?
I think that's it, man. I think, to be honest, so I'm doing this from my phone, everyone. I typically don't do this from my phone, but I haven't been able to set up our normal computer yet. So the computer I was using wasn't working very well. So I'm using my phone, and my phone's about to die. So we're gonna have to wrap this up.
There we go. Yeah, and I heard you bought a house with an extra big office specifically for this show, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll make sure it's all set up as soon as I can.
Cool. Well, yeah, then we'll get it closed up before Chris's phone dies. But thank you, everybody. If you did tune into the live show, or if you're watching on another time, thank you so much. Reach out to us if you want to come on and join us. We'd love to have you. And with that, I guess we'll wrap up this episode of A Father's Love, Healing Through Heartache.